Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Before we get into today's episode, I want to speak directly to the woman who's been doing the work, healing, growing, and showing up for love, but still wondering where it all leads. The Inspired Love program is an 8-week journey if you're ready to stop performing, stop overfunctioning, and start creating a relationship that meets you in truth, fire, and wholeness. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you are and letting love rise to meet you there. So if you've been feeling the pull to go deeper, to break the pattern for good, or to finally be held in a container designed for the woman you're becoming, this is your invitation. You can find all the details in the show notes, and if that stirs something in you, follow that. Let's start your next chapter right now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler on with you today. Pleasure as always. Today's episode, we're going to talk about what it really means to be in your feminine and why you might be afraid to go there. So this is a powerful conversation because the feminine contains so much power. And especially for women, but I think for men too, and I'll talk about this a little bit today, but especially for women, there's so much power in being able to embrace and embody the feminine. And it's a power that has largely been lost in today's world, maybe always, right? As far back as we can go, like the feminine has been diminished. It's been undervalued. It's been called lazy. It's been called weak. It's literally been conditions where for somebody to be in their feminine, whether that was a man or a woman, because we all have both, right? So masculine does not mean men, feminine does not mean women. These are fundamental life force energies that are present in everything. They're present in nature. You can see it when you learn to look. You can see it all over nature, all over life. Feminine and masculine energy. It's like a dance. It's a polarity that is literally creating our physical universe. And because they exist in everything, they also exist inside of us. And so whether you're a man or a woman, we all have masculine and feminine energy. But we live in a world that is hyper-masculine. It's built on force, domination, control, power. Now, there are toxic expressions of this. There are unhealthy expressions of that, but these are not inherently unhealthy. They're just masculine energy, which is assertiveness, which is power, which is the ability to be dominant, the ability to be forceful, the ability to push forward and make something happen. And, again, there are toxic expressions of that, but it's not inherently toxic. It's just masculine energy. Unbalanced, it becomes toxic. But we live in a world where that is the energy that is valued. So you need to be productive. You need to be forceful. You need to be controlling. You need to be not vulnerable at all, right? Like always in charge, always have the upper hand, always be in control. That's the energy that is valued in our world. And whether you're a man or a woman, you were brought up in a world that values that energy and undervalues the feminine. And so something I want to say as we start today, especially for all the women out there, I'm not telling you to be more feminine. And I know a lot of you probably hear that a lot. And it's probably really fucking annoying when you do, right? I mean, I see it. I see it in the women I work with, and I get it. Like, there's probably nothing more annoying than being told that you're too masculine or being told to be more feminine. And I want to honor that. I want to validate that. And I'm not here today saying you need to be more feminine. What I'm saying is, I understand why you might struggle to be more feminine, why you might not know how to access your feminine, because almost nobody in this world does. So let's start there. We've been systematically trained to not do it. We've been told that it's lazy. We've been told that it's weak. When we have accessed that in our lives, we've often been punished for it. We've been hurt because of it. And we've been rewarded for being masculine. So I'm saying I get it. And like, I'll just say this as a man for a moment, because as I said earlier, men have feminine energy too. And it can be deeply rewarding and deeply empowering for a man to be connected to his own feminine energy. But when I was in high school, if I showed up accessing my feminine energy, I wasn't going to go well for me, right? I would have gotten beat up in the locker room. And women have their own version of that. Girls have their own version of that. So we live in a world where we're not taught to do it. We're not validated for doing it. We're actively punished for doing it and rewarded for not doing it. And I just want to presence that as we start here. So for all the ladies today, I'm not telling you that you need to be more feminine, but the purpose of this is to help you understand what might be in the way of you accessing your feminine, while at the same time helping you to understand the power of the feminine. Because even though we've been told it's weak, even though we've been told it's lazy, even though it's been undervalued and suppressed, it's actually incredibly powerful. And so today I'm going to shed some light on exactly what that power is, how it's different from masculine power, because masculine energy has its own power, but feminine energy is different. And really, let me say this, a whole integrated human being, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, a whole integrated human being has equal access to both. So I know when to strengthen and I know when to soften. I know when to control, I know when to release. Whether I'm a man or a woman, I'm fully integrated in the wholeness of myself, and I can move between the two as needed. That's what being a deeply powerful human being is. And when we talk about relationships, if someone is unbalanced in their energy, meaning someone is hyper masculine or hyper feminine, they're going to attract the opposite energy. So if someone is hyper feminine, they're going to attract someone who's hyper masculine. And what you have are two imbalanced people that ultimately leads to all kinds of wounded and toxic dynamics in a relationship. But when two people have a balance within themselves, so maybe I'm a man and maybe I'm primarily in my masculine energy, but I have access to the feminine. I can tune into that when needed. I can soften when needed. And maybe I meet a woman who's primarily operating in her feminine energy, but she's in touch with her masculine, so she can be strong, she can be assertive, she can be powerful when she needs to. So we have two whole individuals, but in relationship with each other. Maybe one can carry the masculine role, the other can carry the feminine role, and they can dance in this polarity. And what is created there is a deep attraction, a deep magnetism. But there's enough integration in that for it to not devolve into a lot of toxic dynamics the way it does when we're operating out at the extremes. I hope that makes sense. So dancing is actually a really good metaphor for this. And I want to start with this to really illustrate the power of the feminine. Let's look at dancing. And in a partner dance, right, the man would usually lead and the woman would usually she would follow, she would be led. And if you watch a couple dancing, it's actually a really, really beautiful illustration for how masculine and feminine energy play together. So the man leads, and of course, I want to say the woman could lead, right? So it's not to say that the man has to lead. The woman could lead the dance. But if she leads the dance, she misses out on the experience of getting to flow with it. And so when the man leads, he creates structure. He creates a container. He creates boundaries. He shows her where she can go. And then what happens, because he's leading, because he's holding the structure, she gets to lose herself in the dance. She gets to fall over his arm and be spun around, and she gets to, be dipped and all these things. She doesn't have to think. She doesn't have to control. She doesn't have to manage what's happening. She gets to lose herself and surrender into the structure that's been built for her. And when you see two people dancing like this, and they're good at it, right? Not everybody's good at it, but when you see this and they're good at it, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, of course, I'm not saying that the woman couldn't lead, and I mean, she could, right? But what I'm pointing to is there's an energy here that I know so many women are dying to feel. They're dying to experience. But they haven't felt safe enough to experience that, especially with men. And so I want to say just a few sentences here. And I want you to just tune in, feel into your body, and let me know if this resonates for you. You feel the pull towards softness, but it makes you feel weak. Right? You feel this need in your soul to be able to soften. But when you do, it makes you feel weak. You crave surrender, but you only know how to control. You crave surrender. You want to just completely surrender, completely let go. But you only know how to control. The need to be in control has become so compulsive that you don't know how to surrender even though you want to. You long to be led, to have someone lead. But you don't trust anyone to lead you. Let me know if that one hits. You long to be led, but you don't trust anyone to lead you. Or here's one more. You want to be held. You want to be held, but all you know is how to hold it all together. Yeah, I see Roberta says that hits. So this is the contrast I'm talking about here. There's this desire to just surrender, to let go, to embrace, to fall into the feminine. But a compulsive addiction to operating in the masculine. And again, I really want to reiterate this. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's what you've been taught to do. In a lot of ways, you're a good learner. You're very adaptive. There's no shame in that. But there is a missed opportunity. So let's talk about magnetism for a moment, because if you look at magnets, and masculine and feminine energy are two poles of a magnet, right? When you look at magnets, there's a positive charge and a negative charge. If you put two positive charged magnets together, they're going to repel each other. So, maybe you did this in science class in school, but if you take two positively charged magnets and you try to push them together, you literally physically can't. I remember the first time we did this in school, it blew my mind. I was like, how, no matter how hard I try, I literally cannot force these magnets together. And if you put them in some kind of container with like machinery that force, it would cause an explosion. Right? So two positive charges will not be forced together. And I often say that two masculine forces are more likely to cause war than to cause love. Now, sure, you could have a brotherhood. It doesn't always have to be war, but there's not a magnetism there. There's not a deep attraction there. If you take two negatively charged magnets and you put them together, it's flat. There's no magnetism at all. It's like putting two rocks together. There's nothing happening. So two feminine charges might have a rapport together. They might have a friendship, but they're inert. There's no pull, there's no heat, there's no passion. But you take a positive charge and a negative charge, and it's like deeply magnetized. When it comes to relationship, this is what we want to feel. We want to feel this magnetism, this pull, this attraction. Right? We want to feel that deep pull towards someone and have them feel that deep pull towards us. We want to be magnetized in that way. And what happens a lot of times is you show up on a date with someone and, let me say this just to make sure I cover all the bases here. You can have two women and one of them can be in their masculine and one of them can be in their feminine. You can have two men, one of them can be in their masculine, one of them can be in their feminine, and you can have that same type of attraction, that same type of pull. So yes, this applies to homosexual relationships. It applies to all relationships. It applies to human relationships. But just for simplicity's purpose, I'm going to stick to woman in her feminine, man in his masculine. Sometimes people ask, well, what if you had a man in his feminine and a woman in her masculine? Would there be that same kind of pull? Yes, there would. And sometimes it works. But a lot of times what ends up happening is that becomes a dynamic where the woman is mothering the man. And he always feels slightly emasculated, and she always feels slightly exhausted. So sometimes it works. Most of the time, it's a better dynamic when the man is in his masculine and the woman is in her feminine. But going back to this magnetism, this is what we want to feel. This is what we want to experience in relationship. We want to feel that strong pull, that heat between us, being pulled to each other in an undeniable way. But because we live in a world where we've all been taught to be masculine, if a man shows that he's feminine, or especially a young boy, when we're going through our conditioning, they'll get beat up. I want to say this. When a woman is too feminine, meaning she has no connection to her masculine, life will walk all over her. Men will walk all over her. And this is why I said earlier, for the women who feel like it's hard to be in your feminine, I get it. I understand, because when you have been that, you've likely gotten hurt. Something I teach in my program when I work with the women around this is that it is so important for a woman to be able to hold masculine space for herself until a man has earned the right to do so. Right? Meaning, I'm not soft until you show me that it's safe to be soft. There's a little bit of a paradox there, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I just want to presence that principle first, and then we'll talk about some of the nuance in it. But I'm not going to be soft until you show me that it's safe to be soft. And so what she's doing is she understands I live in a masculine-dominated world. If I go around being feminine all the time, which means I'm somewhat passive, I'm receptive, I'm open, I'm soft, that the masculine energy in the world, which is not always healthy, integrated masculine energy, is going to take advantage of that. It's going to walk all over it. She's going to get used. She's going to get taken advantage of. So it's important that she has that connection to her own masculine. That's where she has the ability to create boundaries. That's where she has the ability to assert what she wants. That's where she has the ability to remove herself or walk away from a situation that doesn't serve her. If she's always open and passive and receptive, she's going to get walked all over. And at the same time, and this is where the nuance is. If she's never open and passive and receptive, she's going to clash with every man she meets. Every man she meets is going to feel emasculated, is going to feel like there's no place for him in her life, is going to feel like he has nothing to offer her. And I want to acknowledge this is a really complex situation for a woman to be in. I feel for you. I really do. Because you have to walk this balance of being feminine enough to invite connection, but also strong enough to protect yourself. That's complex. That's difficult to manage. That's something that I don't think men really have to deal with. Now, men have their own challenge of being able to access their feminine enough where they can be emotionally attuned. Right? So there's men have their own challenge there, but I think women are in a more complex position, honestly. And so here's the nuance, because as a woman, if you're so rooted in your masculine, you're so compulsive about this need to control, this resistance to being vulnerable, this inability to let yourself be seen, this inability to let yourself be open. And say you go out on a first date with a man and he's in his masculine. You might have a great conversation about business or about the world, or you might really be able to relate on some levels, but the spark isn't going to be there. That magnetism isn't going to be there. At worst, at best, you're relating on some levels. At worst, you're actually triggering each other, right? But you're not going to have that spark. You're not going to have that heat, that magnetism. And so I know I said earlier that a woman needs to be able to hold her own masculine space until a man shows her that it's safe to not do so. And I want to just add a little bit of nuance to that. It's not that you're always in your masculine until a man makes you feel safe, but it's more like, I'll put it this way. I used to run these trainings. I would run like large seminar trainings for that would go on for like 4 or 5 days, and they were intense. We do a lot of deep work, a lot of somatic work. We'd have like 100 people in a room, be leading people through very intense processes, and there would be like, I mean, sometimes the trainings would go off the rails. Now, they never went completely off the rails, but sometimes they got a little out of hand because of what was coming up for so many people in the room. And when I was learning to facilitate these trainings, there was something that my mentor taught me. And he said that you don't need to use the hammer, but you need to put it out on the table so that people know it's there. And what he meant by that is basically like, I don't need to be beating people over the head with a hammer, but there needs to be an energy in the room where people feel like I could. Because what that does is it creates safety in the room, right? If everyone knows I've got it under control, now they feel safe to have their experiences. But if people feel like I don't have the room under control, now the space isn't safe and people can't go deep in the training. And so I relate it kind of like that. It's not that the woman needs to use her masculine all the time, but she needs to put it out on the table and let him know that it's there. And so it's not like you show up to a first date in your masculine and you're being masculine with a masculine man and killing the polarity between you. It's not like that. It's more like there's a certain edge in the relationship where he can feel the moment he drops the ball, you're going to pick it up. There's a challenge in the dynamic between you that is always challenging him to hold that space. And when he doesn't hold it, you step into it. So let me just give a concrete example of this. Something really simple, really relatable. Right, so let's say you have a great first date, you hit it off, you have a great experience, and then he says at the end of the date, I'm going to text you tomorrow. And then he doesn't text you. And maybe 2 days later, he texts you. Now, what an ultra extreme feminine person would do is they would just be happy he texted. And they would pretend like it never happened. They would pretend like he didn't say he was going to do something and then did something else, right? That's ultra passive, disconnected from my truth, disconnected from my power. I'm just happy to hear from you, and I'm just going to keep talking to you and hope you don't leave. That's the extreme feminine version of that. But this would be one of those times where you pick it up. And you say, listen, it's nice to hear from you, but I need to be honest. You told me you were going to text me yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, and you didn't. And I'm really not okay with building a relationship with someone who's going to tell me one thing and do something else. So if we're going to keep doing this, I just need to make this clear right now. When you say you're going to do something, I need you to do it. That's the energy I need from a man in my life. Now I see this question here, is picking up the ball emasculating? It could be, right? So using that same example, let's say you pick up the ball and he feels emasculated by it, well, what he's demonstrating is he's not masculine enough to hold you. And yeah, there are some men out there like that. He's demonstrating that he's not rooted enough in his masculine energy to hold you. Which, and let me be fair here, in many cases, if he was rooted enough, he probably would have texted you the next day anyway. He would have done what he said he was going to do. But maybe there's exceptions. But see, an opportunity like this, when you speak your truth, so what are you accessing there? You're being assertive. You're being powerful. You're taking control of the situation, if only for a moment. And now what's happening in the dynamic between you is he's being challenged to hold that masculine space more completely. Some men will rise to the challenge, some men won't. But this is the thing. If you as a woman are able to hold that masculine space for yourself whenever needed, and you feel secure and you feel confident in that, so you know when something's not in alignment with me, I'm going to speak about it, I'm going to assert myself, I'm going to say my truth. I know that when I'm not in a space with a man where I feel protected, that I'm going to step in and make sure that I feel protected and I feel secure and rooted in that. When you have that within yourself, that's what creates the safety for you to actually relax into your feminine. That creates the structure that you need to feel safe in your feminine. Because here's the thing. I said this earlier. Someone who's all the way in her feminine, has no connection to her masculine, is going to get walked all over by life. And there are some women like that. I mean, you see them. Some of you may have been that at one point in your life, where you chase and, you settle for breadcrumbs and all of that kind of stuff. You're just grateful for any amount of attention you get, and then you get walked all over time and time and time again. And what happens for a lot of women is maybe they start out that way when they're younger, and then they get beat up a little bit by life, and they shift all the way to the other perspective, and they become masculine, but then there's not a space to experience that polarity and that magnetism with a man. So this goes back to what I said earlier. Being rooted in your masculine energy creates the safety to surrender into your feminine. And so, like I said, you don't need to always be in it, but you put it out on the table so that he knows that it's there. The feminine is likable. When a woman gives off her feminine energy, she's likable, she's attractive. But in those moments when she asserts herself in her masculine, she earns respect. And for someone to fall in love, you need both. You need to be likable and respected. So, the power of the feminine, I want to go back to the dance illustration. Because the power of the feminine, it's subtle. It's not as obvious as masculine power. Because the masculine power says, do this, do that. It controls the situation. The feminine leads, but not in the way the masculine leads. It leads by calling the masculine into her service. If we go back to the dancing illustration, he's creating the structure. He's leading the steps. He's leaning her. He's spinning her. And she just gets to flow in it. But if she wasn't there to be dipped, to be spun, he would have nothing to do. Right? If he was just out there spinning nothing, dipping nothing, leading nothing, what's he even doing? See, this is the power of the feminine. It's not overt control. It's not domination. It's leadership through surrender. It literally gives the masculine purpose. It gives him something to lead. It gives him something to focus his energy towards. I have a good friend of mine named Michael. He's a men's coach. He leads retreats and seminars and things for men, similar to what I do, but he focuses more on men. And something he and I have talked about, and this is something he's seen with all of his clients, when they get into committed relationships, they start to think clearer, they get healthier, they make more money, they become more confident in their lives. Like every aspect of a man's life improves when he gets into a committed relationship with a woman. And this is the fundamental reason why, is because now he has somewhere to focus his energy. I could say this is true for myself and my wife. Right? When a man's single, he doesn't have anywhere to focus his energy. So he's focused on this and he's focused on that, and it's shifting from thing to thing. And, sometimes he'll like throw it all into his business and he'll just become a workaholic. But often that just more disconnects him from his heart. So when he gets into a committed relationship, he has a heart-centered place to focus his energy. He becomes wiser. He becomes deeper. He becomes emotionally attuned. He becomes more confident. He's able to carry himself in the world in a more powerful way. So the feminine is powerful because she guides the masculine in purpose. She gives him something to create structure around. And that's something that the masculine deeply needs to feel relevant, to feel like he matters. And when she surrenders into her feminine, when she gives him that space, what happens for her is she stops performing and she starts feeling. So she steps out of being the woman who needs to do everything right all the time and be perfect. And she becomes the woman who is deeply connected to her truth. She's guided by her inner wisdom. She's guided by her intuition, and she even guides the relationship by that. Like, there are times when my wife will say something, and like her saying one thing will completely shift the trajectory of anything. And I've learned this over the years. Like I used to like argue with it. It's like, no, I know best. But now like I'll be talking to her about something and she'll be like, I think you should do this. And it's like, I've learned that when she says something like that, she's often connected to a wisdom that I'm not in touch with. She's not doing it in the way where like the masculine would do it, where it's like, I'm making a plan, I'm making a strategy, I'm mapping out these things and I'm going to execute. She's like tuned into the cosmos and it's like, this is what feels right. And I've learned to trust that over the years. Another thing that happens is she gets to be held and not just needed. Right? Rather than being worshipped and admired for how strong she is, which again is an asset. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what happens for her is she gets to be held in the places where she doesn't have to be so strong. Here's another one. She accesses pleasure without needing to earn it. You see, the feminine she's very sensual by nature. I remember my wife, she'd be like, my favorite thing to do, this is when we first met, she'd tell me this. She'd be like, my favorite thing to do is just to sit with a cup of coffee in the morning with the sun on my skin and some wonderful brunch and have like some great food and just sit there reading a book and like she would just like describe this whole scene. And she'd be like, that is just my favorite thing in the world. And I'd be like, really? Because like I want to go scuba diving, or I want to like ride a roller coaster, or I want to like I want to do something intense. But that was her and her feminine, where she's just like deeply connected to the moment, savoring all of her senses, like sitting with a cup of coffee, feeling the sun on her skin, right? Like she's connected, she's tuned in, she's absorbing the pleasure of the moment. When she can stop trying to protect herself and trying to coordinate everything and trying to make everything feel safe and structured, she's able to really tune into what's present in the moment and just feel herself, feel her body, feel alive. What happens when a woman embraces her feminine is she attracts devotion, not attention. Right? When she's rooted in her feminine, there's something she calls forth from men. She calls forth their devotion. And because of the conditioning that women have received basically since the day they were born, right? I mean, this starts so early. It starts with our parents, and they're like, good girls do this, bad girls do that. Right? If you want to be a good girl, you get good grades and clean your room and blah, blah, blah. And, if you act out, or if you're too emotional, or if you throw a tantrum, or like, you're bad. Like, this starts so early, and it happens for boys too. The expectation for boys is a little different. But this conditioning starts so early, and what we're taught is to do what gets attention. And so we grow up trying to figure out, who do I need to be to get attention from people? And we don't learn to create devotion. So when she's connected to her feminine, rather than trying to be chosen by someone, she becomes an invitation. I said this earlier, I just want to circle back to it. She becomes this energetic invitation that challenges a man on the deepest subconscious level to rise for her, to rise to the occasion. Her being rooted in that feminine presence, it speaks to something primal and fundamental in the masculine psyche, something that he's not even consciously aware of. But it inspires that part of him that wants to be a protector, wants to be a provider, that wants to channel his energy and his intention into a meaningful place, a meaningful purpose. And maybe the most important part here is she feels safe in her own body, safe in her own being. Not because she's protecting herself, but because she's rooted, grounded. She's connected to her truth, her intuition. As I talked about earlier, when my wife would like say something and she'd be like, I think maybe you should do this, right? It's like connected to something greater, a greater wisdom, tuned in. It's not about being soft all the time. It's about being true all the time. And that's what safety feels like. So I just want to touch a little bit on where the block is, where the challenge is. Why is it so difficult to access that? And I've touched on it quite a bit already, but I just want to name a few things here because we live in a hypermasculine world. We live in a world where we're taught productivity over presence, logic over intuition, control over trust, doing over being, power over pleasure, and independence over interdependence. Right? This is the social narrative that we live in. This is the collective value system of planet Earth. And it's basically like that everywhere. I mean, there may be some little countries somewhere that are, more feminine in nature, but it's basically like that everywhere, especially in Western societies. And so this is what we've adapted to as being a valuable human being, as being a successful human being, as being a worthy human being. And as I pointed to earlier, someone who is always in their feminine tends to get walked all over in life. So it's something that we've been taught on many levels. We've been taught that it's good. We've been taught that it's right. We've been taught that it's powerful. We've been taught that it's attractive. We've also been taught that if you don't do it, you get hurt. And so because of this, this isn't like an idea like, oh yeah, I should be productive because that's what's good to do. It's like I have to be productive because my nervous system has been wired for productivity. And if I'm not constantly making things happen, I don't feel safe. I feel like I'm going to die. Like many of us from childhood were taught to be caretakers, achievers, fixers, peacemakers. Like many of us as children had to control the environment for the adults. Many of us had to protect ourselves from our own parents. So I really want everyone to understand this. It's not that, oh, well, I default to my masculine because it's a good idea. It's like I default to my masculine because the moment I surrender, I let go, I try to find peace and ease within myself. I don't find peace and ease. I find anxiety. I feel terrified. That's the reality of it. So many women, especially if you have trauma around men, which a lot of women do, whether it comes from your fathers or your exes or wherever it comes from, your bosses. When a woman has trauma around men, she will automatically default to her masculine anytime she's around a man. Because she feels that it's not safe to be vulnerable. It's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to be available. It's not safe to be soft. If I soften, he's going to hurt me. If I'm available, he's going to hurt me. And I want to say that's so understandable. There's no judgment here. I get it. But here's the rub. Is that a lot of those women, or many of those women, many of you who are listening right now, while you compulsively go to your masculine because that's a survival structure that's wired into your nervous system, you also want to feel that deep magnetism with a man. You want to feel that deep polarity, that deep attraction. And of course you do. That's the juiciest stuff in life. Of course you do. And so what I want to do is just take all the shame off the table. There's no shame in that you find that difficult and that you've been wired to operate differently. There's no shame in that. And there's also no shame in your desire to feel different. It's all okay. It's all good. So I want to say that because I want to release the shame of feeling like I need to do something about, or like there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. Given your history, your past relationships, your upbringing, the environments that you were brought up in, it's perfectly understandable that this is how you would feel. Given the nature of planet Earth, it's perfectly understandable that this is how you would feel. And of course you want to feel different. Because like I said, that magnetism, that heat, that passion, that polarity, that's the juiciest stuff in life. Everybody wants that, whether they admit it or not. So it's all good. It's all okay. There's nothing wrong here. There's just a simple process of needing to bridge that gap. That's all. Just a simple process of needing to bridge that gap. And so a couple things I want to say about this. I want to give you some like just kind of practical tips about how you bridge that gap. And then I also want to say that my Inspired Love program, which is my 8-week deep transformational journey, begins on May 21st. So it's coming up here in just a couple weeks. And that is a place where I create the structure and the container for you to truly be able to surrender and express your feminine and be witnessed in it in a safe and wholesome environment, where I'm just going to simply hold that structure for you so you can go through all the processes you need to go through in terms of releasing, opening, letting go. And that's just a step-by-step journey where you don't even have to think about what to do or how to do it or figure it out. I'm just going to guide the process for you. And all you've got to do is just surrender to the process, let yourself open inside of that container, and come out completely transformed. So that starts on May 21st. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can find the details for that in the show notes. Or if you're live with me right now, you could just shoot me a DM if you're interested and you want more info. But I want to talk a little bit about what needs to happen to bridge that gap. I touched on this earlier. What's necessary is to move into a holistic experience of yourself, to really be tuned in with your whole self. And so what I mentioned earlier was that we all have masculine and feminine energy inside of us. And it's not that men are supposed to be masculine and women are supposed to be feminine. It's that each individual needs to be grounded in their whole energy. You see, when I'm deeply connected to my masculine and deeply connected to my feminine, and I feel both alive within me all the time, then it's not a matter of I need to lean on one or the other for survival. It's simply a matter of I feel intuitively to what's needed in the moment, and I bring that forward. So when I gave the example earlier, if you have a first date and they say they're going to text and they don't text, and then they text 2 days later, that response of, listen, you said you were going to text and you didn't. I really need you to do what you say you're going to do. That's not a strategy. That's not a protective mechanism that you've sorted out in your ego mind that says, this is what I need to do to get someone to respect me. If you're doing it like that, you're going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to come off inauthentic. What it is it's your truth that you're deeply connected to coming through you. It's not like, oh, he's not holding the masculine space, so I need to step into my masculine right now and make sure it happens. No, it's not that. It's you being in touch with your truth, the fire inside of you. And this is what comes through in the moment because it's what's relevant for the moment. Not because you're strategizing a way to protect yourself. You see, what most of us have done is we've strategized our whole life. How do I get people to like me? How do I do this? Right? We've tried to get a PDF template to tell us how to respond to every situation. That's never going to work. The only thing that works is when you get rooted and embodied in your wholeness and you respond to every situation from that wholeness. That's what works. So when something's not in alignment, like they said they were going to text and they didn't, I tune in, I see how that feels in my body, and that fire moves through me. Not because I'm trying to protect myself, but because that's what the moment calls for. And I'm connected enough to know that's what the moment calls for. And so what we do in the Inspired Love program, it's an 8-week journey. As I said, I'm going to create the structure. I'm going to give you the process. So you don't need to think about it. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to try to, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? All you've got to do is surrender to the process. And what we're going to do is we're going to get you deeply in touch with your truth, with the experiences that are alive in your body. You're going to learn how to listen to that. You're going to learn how to understand your thoughts. What's intuition? What's ego? You're going to be able to name and identify the protective mechanisms that are always operating, that are disconnecting you from your truth. We're going to confront guilt and shame, which are the parts of yourself that are operating underneath all of your protection, all of your ego mechanisms. It's all rooted in the idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. And if I don't present myself as perfect, someone's going to find out about it and they're going to walk away. We're going to work somatically with the energy of guilt and shame in the body to let it go, to release it. We're going to do processes like breath work, where we actively move the energy in your body, and I'm going to teach you how to breathe in a way that physically and tangibly moves the energy out of your body. We're going to look at what it means to operate with healthy masculine structure, what it means to embody a healthy feminine presence, and how to integrate both of these pieces within yourself. And then we're going to end by, I'm just going to simply give you a formula to take into your life to practice every day. And as you continue to practice this in every aspect of your life, what starts to happen is you just become deeply rooted in your truth. You respond to every situation from that truth, and your entire life becomes a reflection of that. I would give you the formula now, but it doesn't make sense unless you've been through the whole process first. But once you've gone through the process, it just clicks and you know exactly how you need to be moving forward. So what this program really offers is the opportunity to spend 8 weeks where I'm going to hold that masculine space, and you can just explore what it's like to be in your feminine. You can just explore what it's like to surrender, to let go, to be deeply connected to your body, to your truth, to your intuition, to your wisdom. To recognize all the parts of yourself that are clinging to protection and fear. And to find within yourself the certainty and the clarity to not have to operate from that anymore. And then you leave transformed. So again, if you're listening to the podcast right now, you can find the details for the program in the show notes. If you're with me live and you're interested in joining us, just shoot me a DM and I'm happy to chat about it, answer any questions you have. I see a question right now. What if someone has childhood traumas? Does this program help heal those wounds too? Absolutely. That's exactly what it's about. So I appreciate you asking. We're going to walk through your whole story, your whole history. You're going to acknowledge the wounds. You're going to learn how to feel them in your body. We're going to somatically work them out. You're going to develop a whole new relationship with them and move forward. So yeah, it's a part of your story, but it doesn't limit you anymore. If anything, it simply becomes a tool that your wisdom pulls from rather than a block or a limitation. So I really appreciate that question. So going back, I want to just wrap this up and then I'm going to open up for some questions. When we talk about what it really means to be in your feminine and why you might struggle there, feminine energy isn't something you do. It's something you become. Right? It's not something you do. It's something you embody. It's something you step into. You stop performing. You start attracting. You stop managing. You start trusting. You stop chasing. You start choosing. And you stop proving. You start radiating. That's what it's about. The only thing standing in your way there is the fact that you don't feel safe enough to let go. And I want to say that safety is not something you find in anyone or in anything else. That safety is something you find within yourself. And when you find and you create that safety within yourself, then what happens is your external relationships can reflect that. But as long as that safety is missing, I'm going to say this, it's not even that you're going to attract unsafe partnerships, it's that you're going to be attracted to unsafe partnerships because you are going to be attracted to the men and the people who reinforce your own identity. And when you really cultivate that safety within yourself, you feel yourself relax, you feel yourself surrender. You find peace and ease within your life. You start to have a kind of effortless joy that just starts to come through. And that's when you become magnetic, you become attractive. And I want to say, this program isn't about finding a partner. It's about finding yourself. And when you find yourself, finding a partner becomes kind of a non-issue because you're happy and fulfilled and joyful in your life. And then the right person just shows up at the right time. So I want to end with that. Thank you for being with me today. It's been a powerful conversation. Really appreciated you allowing me to lead you through this. I just want to inspire you and encourage you to find that safety, find that wholeness within yourself. Find that safe place inside that you can always return to, no matter what life brings your way. And if you're interested in being a part of this inspired love journey and allowing me to guide you in 8 weeks, guide you in this process, I would absolutely love it. It would be my pleasure to do that. So thank you, love and blessings. I'll see you next week. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.